Documentary films are original films. Why I'm saying this? Because filmmaking started with documentary films. Documentary filmmaking is real filmmaking also. Many people call it like that. That is filmmaking. Otherwise, the rest of the things are other forms of, secondary forms of filmmaking. Documentary is the primary form of filmmaking. Documentary filmmaking, you can also call it as non-fiction video production or non-fiction video editing. Let us start with defining the term documentary filmmaking. So from the name, what do you understand? It is about documenting something, right? But if it is about documenting something, then we would not have spoken about art or craft or technique of it. You could have simply gone and taken a video and done a coverage of this thing, and you just file it as a video proof of things that police department or any other government department they do. Suppose you are in a PWD department, you have got a road contract for PWD department. You are a road contractor, and from PWD, Public Works Department, you have got a contract to build a road. So PWD department will ask you to videograph the road before, and then when you complete it, they will ask you to videograph the road after. They will also videograph separately. You have to also videograph it. That can be also documentation. Right, that is a documentation, but it is not a film. These documentations are not film. When police is doing investigation, there is one person always with a small handycam camera who will be documenting what is happening. But that is not a documentary film. Documentary film represents reality. It presents reality in artistic form. That is what documentary filmmaking is. As we already know, whenever we talk about films, we are talking about stories. So documentary filmmaking also must have stories. Documentary filmmaking tell a story of a character. Documentary filmmaking tell us stories about the location, about the place, about the world of the area. Documentary filmmaking also tell the story about the ideas, the ideologies, the themes, like fiction films do. So there is no difference between a fiction film and a documentary film in terms of art. The only difference between a fiction film and a documentary film is fiction film is a made up, created, fictionalized representation. Documentary filmmaking, we see real people, we see real locations, we see real incidents. There are many confusions when I conduct my offline classes and when I talk to people who are very new in filmmaking or who do not know, who want to get into filmmaking. Many people have very different ideas and many misconceptions about documentary filmmaking. Fiction and non-fiction, they get confused. So when I ask a question, if we see Richard Attenborough have made a film called Gandhi in 1984, you all have seen, Doordarshan have shown Indians that film for very long, since long. So Richard Attenborough's Gandhi, if you haven't seen, you should see it. Ben Kingsley has played Mahatma Gandhi's role. So what is it? It is, suppose, let us say, it cannot be, but let us say it is based on true life of Mahatma Gandhi. Rajit Kapoor has played Mahatma Gandhi in Making of Mahatma, directed by Shyam Benegal. Richard Attenborough has made a film on Mahatma Gandhi. There were some other films also made on Mahatma Gandhi, played by different actors, directed by different directors. So are these documentary films? Because these films are documenting the life of Mahatma Gandhi. But they are not documentary films. They are fiction films, even if they are showing the truth, supposedly. Then also they are a fiction film because there is an actor who is playing the role of this character who is dead 100 years ago, 50 years ago. Only if you get the footage, only if you get the archival clips of the real Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, real Mahatma Gandhi, and then you edit a film and give a voiceover or whatever, you show interviews of that person. When you show real Mahatma Gandhi, then only it can be a documentary film. Shahid Bhagat Singh, Manoj Kumar has done, Bobby Deol has done, Ajay Devgan has done films on that. They all are fiction, even if it is based on true story. We do not know that Bhagat Singh walked like that. We do not know whether Bhagat Singh sang like that. It is fiction. Only if we see the real Bhagat Singh, then only it is a documentary film. Otherwise, it is not a documentary film. So this example of biographical example, biography genre example I have taken because this is the most misunderstood and most confusing for many people. It might not be for you, but still I have clarified it. You need to understand that it doesn't matter if the story is based on true events or not. What level of replication of truth the filmmaker is making, that doesn't matter. If an actor is playing a character, it is a fiction. Now, in documentary films also, in many documentary TV programs like Crime Patrol, and there are many programs like that, there also some of the characters are inserted, and they show real locations also, and then they show dramatization. In Hindi, it is called Natya Rupantar. Dramatization, dramatized version of reality. They will write a ticker, or they will write a note also in that video. So that becomes docudrama. Okay, that doesn't make it fiction also. That is a combination of fiction and non-fiction. It is a docudrama. But fiction and documentary are different only in this aspect, that it is happening fictiously. We have, even if it is a true story, but we are enacting it. In documentary film, we are watching the real footage. We are watching the original people, original locations. Now, in terms of telling a story, there is no difference. Like in fiction films, we have a character and a dramatic situation. A documentary film is also a story. Here also we have to have a character and a dramatic situation. One analogy I will give with the written. You can read a joke, a fiction joke, Santa Banta joke, or a short story, a fiction short story where there are characters, fictitious characters. Alice in Wonderland is novel. Any other short story or a novel, a fiction. And you can read non-fiction also. Suppose you read newspaper. Some politician is coming to your city and the opposition is saying something. The politician, which the party it belongs to, is saying something. There are opinions of some common people. And then finally there is the opinion of the writer, the journalist also, or the editor of the newspaper. So here is a character, the politician who is launching into the city, who is coming to the city. And the dramatic situation is whatever the issue is, why he is coming into the city, for what he is coming to the city, what the opposition is blaming him to, what his supporters are talking about, and who do the filmmaker at the end is commenting upon it, the storyteller at the end is commenting about it. And the newspaper guys, the newspaper people, they call it story. What is Nitin Gadkari's story? What stories we are filing tonight for that? All the articles, all the blogs that we call, they call it story. And these are stories because they have character or characters and dramatic situation. Similarly, documentary films. A documentary film is nothing different than a fiction film in terms of storytelling. I have told you in terms of art form how they are different. In terms of technicality, how they are different, but in terms of structure of a story, in terms of storytelling, they also have a character plus dramatic situation, and documentaries also have a character plus dramatic situation. The fiction films also focus on one person or one idea. Similarly, documentary films, fiction and documentary films both should have point of views. From whose point of view we are watching this? Maybe we'll have 2 or 3 point of views in the whole film. But each and every scene is told through a particular point of view. The film can have multiple point of views, or the film can have just one point of view. I'll come to the types of different documentary films also. Both fiction and documentary film will have narratives. That what happens after this, what happens after this, what happens after that. A list of events. Both fiction and documentary will be taken in a particular style. It will have directorial style, they will have cinematography style, they have editing style, they will have music, sound, they have a particular style, particular theme to it. Documentary films are an artistic representation of reality. This is a short definition of documentary films. Now we can define after understanding this much. Documentary films are artistic representation of reality. Represent has 2 meanings. Both work in documentary films. Represent or represent. It represents reality also, and it represents reality also. So this is what documentary film is about. There are various types of documentary films. First, I will let me get into the forms that you can directly see. Then I will get into the technical details of the forms, different forms. One documentary film that you mostly have grew up with is news. That is one kind of documentary films. So they make a program, TV. Like for example, we have feature films for OTT and theaters, and we have TV serials or again for OTT and television. Similarly, documentaries also have theatrical films which has one-off story or series or serials. Discovery TV, they contain programs, the serials. They have shows. Each show is different than other. The point I was talking about that in documentary films, if you're watching, the most common thing that you have grown up with will be news. That is a program, TV program again, or a Discovery Channel program. Like the past 10 years, this decade, by end of the last decade in India, this reality shows became more popular. Before that also reality shows were there, but they were like quiz shows, mostly were quiz shows, Kaun Banega Crorepati, and before that also quiz shows were mostly used. But after that, this Big Boss and then other types of reality programs started in. And these are also, you have watched, these are all non-fiction materials. Then you can see documentary films on Netflix, Amazon, documentary series also you can watch on these channels. So these types of documentary films you are already aware with. Now let us see all these types, what they are technically called. All these different types of documentary films. Mostly common people, you guys are filmmakers, you might have explored many other forms, but mostly general audience do not watch that much of documentary films, but they consume documentary programs very much. News, Discovery Channel, and all these other examples, reality shows like Big Boss, all these channels are well consumed. These are all documentary. People might say that we do not like documentary, or people might judge that documentary films do not work in the market. It is wrong. The highest watched videos you can see might be documentary videos, documentary programs. Documentary films are original films. Like, the filmmaking started with documentary films are original films. Why I'm saying this? Because filmmaking started with documentary films. We just documented, we just shot things and showed it to people, like today's YouTube. 90% of today's YouTube is just single shot. People have shot with a mobile phone or one shot and just uploaded to send to someone or show something. The filmmaking started with this. Then people started enacting and then cutting. You have seen the cutting edge documentary, you know it, how this filmmaking evolved later also. So documentary filmmaking is real filmmaking also. Many people call it like that. That is filmmaking. Otherwise, the rest of the things are other forms of secondary forms of filmmaking. Documentary is a primary form of filmmaking. I would say that documentary, fiction, music video, corporate films, they are distinct forms of filmmaking. But story structure wise, storytelling wise, they all are same. We have to have a log line and we have to have a character. In the log line, we have to have a character and a dramatic situation.